Hi, this is Chris with the Sheepdog Church Security Academy, and this is your Church Security Roll Call. Today we have a special guest coming on. His name is Michael. He's from ARC, which is the American Reconstruction Concepts. And one of the primary focuses of his company, I guess is the best way to refer to it, is to train individuals and churches how to do the hands-on kind of stuff. So what I mean by that is this: firearms training, self-defense. You know, we all know that we can learn a great deal through podcasts. We can learn a great deal through online training. Of course, that's what I like to do. And but we, at some point, we got to get to the range. At some point, we have to have some sort of self-defense, hands-on training to assist us in the worst-case scenario, right? If we got to go hands-on with somebody, you don't want to be, you don't want that the first time you've ever done that, or the first time you've done it in, 20, 30, 40, 50 years. We got to have some basic training. And so without further ado, I'm going to introduce Mike, and you can listen in on this conversation we had. Okay, so here we are. We're here with Michael, and he's going to tell us about the company that he started, a little bit about himself, and really the more important focus is we really want to talk about the specific training that church safety teams should be looking for as far as firearms and self-defense techniques and all that kind of good stuff. So, Michael, thank you so much for being here today.
Thank you, Chris. It's an honor to be on the show. I appreciate it.
Yeah. So tell us a little bit about yourself. How did you, what's your history, what's your experience, and how did you start, I should know this already, ARC, the American Reconstruction Concepts. How did that all start?
Absolutely. So I would say that it's been founded in the blessings of God and great rearing, being able to grow up in a Christian home and always going to church, and also with a father that was passionate about self-defense, protecting his family, standing up for them, making sure that he had the skills to be able to protect his own people, his children, and then giving them the defense skills. So as I was growing up in the Pacific Northwest, specifically in a little known town of Kamiah, Idaho, which if you haven't heard that, it doesn't surprise me at all. People who live right next door, they don't even know what town it is. And but it was a great childhood experience because he brought me up in mixed martial arts and defensive gunfighting, and I pretty well got immersed into the culture and just enjoyed every bit of it. And then whenever I grew up, I eventually found the U.S. Air Force as the Sear Specialist in particular, and they're based out of Fairchild, Spokane, Washington, which was a huge blessing to be able to find. And once I found it, I had already determined this is one of my great purposes in life, is to help people with life-saving skills. So I joined the Air Force with a lot of great blessings from the Lord, and I always had good people around me, good Christian people, which, as you well know, it's not always the case in the military. Sometimes it's few and far between, but I got to roll with a lot of excellent Christian men, and just found my passion there in helping translate life-saving skills to people in the military. And then just recently got out and started up this LLC, which is American Reconstruction Concepts, like you mentioned. And together with several other partners and trainers, we're helping provide some of those similar life-saving skills like we provide in training in the military.
Yeah, excellent. So you said you did Sear. How long did you do that?
The last 4 years. And for those that aren't aware, Sear Specialist it's actually the only position that was created for training people in high risk of isolation. The other branches, they have the same role where they have SEER school, but only the Air Force has created a AFSC, or basically a designated role that has given years of training into it to be able to be a committed, full-time, dedicated instructor, instead of having gone through the 3-week course in the past and then raised your hand to be somebody who volunteers to go there. And this is something that you can actually sign up for and go to directly after boot camp, which was the route that I took.
Sure. And for people that aren't familiar with Sear, this is what I know. You correct me if I'm wrong. So my brother was a helicopter pilot, and he went through Sear training because that assisted him should he crash on the wrong side of the bad guy divide to, was it escape? Tell us what it is. It's survival, escape, resistance, and evasion. So
yes, sir.
They keep themselves alive before until they're rescued, right?
Absolutely, you're 100% correct. So it stands for survival, evasion, resistance, and escape. So the purpose is for anyone who's high risk of isolation. If they're dropped behind enemy lines, how do they survive back there? And then how do they evade the enemy, which, as you well know, is a very difficult task in and of itself. Like stacked on top of survival, now you have all these evasion skills that just make your life that much more difficult. And then, of course, some people have a very difficult time with that. Even if they have the best training and a great will to survive, inevitably, some people are going to be picked up. So the resistance is resisting that interrogation, which is always a potential threat, whether you're in wartime or in a hostage scenario, or even in an unfriendly government situation, which we run into constantly around the world. And then the escape portion. And a lot of those things are classified, but the great thing is that the survival portion is completely unclassed. It's been around since the dawn of man, and I got to have the great privilege of helping people and get through a year-long pipeline tech school, surviving in every different barrel Alaska, and freezing the native 50 degrees up there in igloos, all the way to sand dunes and 110 plus degree heat with no water. It's like I got to experience it all. It was an amazing opportunity, and I always enjoy helping people in that space. It's just a really brilliant time.
Sure. So now that you're with ARC, obviously, it looks like you're focused on a number of things, but you're also focused on churches and really helping them. How did that kind of, obviously, you talked about your religious background, your Christian background. Was there any other thing that kind of brought you into that idea of taking the skills that you had to assist safety ministries, safety team leaders with firearms, self-defense, all that kind of stuff?
Yes, sir. Absolutely. So, like I said, the main purpose for myself is helping people with life-saving skills and helping protectors stand in that space. So, I had the gun culture background where I grew up shooting weapons from all the way from 0 out to extreme target interdiction distances of like a mile out. And we had gun ranges that I basically lived on and had almost endless opportunities. See, my dad was a doomsday prepper. And so when it came to stockpiling ammunition, like there was no shortage. And then we lived on a gun range. So sweet. I had a lot of ample opportunity there. And by the time I was in my late teens, I was aggressively getting into a lot of competition shooting and in and around that world, and started working into almost like a part-time instructor, and range safety officer. And I just really enjoyed that aspect to it. So then fast forward a few years later, outside of the military and towards the end of my time there, I was going to church and found that there's opportunity to serve and bring some of those skill sets into the ministry in terms of the safety team. And I found that a lot of the safety team members have their hearts absolutely made of gold. Just amazing people, volunteering for crazy shifts and, getting absolutely zero compensation for it. They're just, it's a ministry. It really is. And then, but a lot of them don't have the background in training and in the firearms community. And so I found that there was a little bit of a void there where I wanted to help out my brothers and sisters standing in that space so that they could do absolutely the best job possible.
Yeah, that's one of the things about safety ministry is that, there's so many things involved in it. And one of the pieces that we can sometimes be undertrained in amongst any, well, really training is a challenge across the board for all topics. But there's this mechanical side, right? I mean, the only way to learn how to be a good at shooting is by going to the range and shooting a lot. The only way to learn how to use self-defense and protect yourself or control tactics or those types is by actually doing. And so
Yes.
you're definitely filling that space. So how long have you been training churches and really anyone in firearms and unarmed self-defense?
Absolutely. Well, it's coming up on around 10 years, and then last 4 years professionally in the military, and taking that on as a vocation. So I had the passion whenever I joined the military, and I had some experience. And actually, even before I joined the military, on occasion I would run empty hand self-defense classes. Sometimes I'd run those for ladies. Sometimes it would just be a community or a church that reached out. And other times I would, on occasion, be able to run handgun classes. And it was mostly by word of mouth. I wasn't actually, a professional. I just had the passion. I had the interest. And then going into the military, not only learning those specific skill sets to the military, but also growing in empty hand self-defense and force-on-force techniques, and being able to fine-tune and hone the skill of being able to deliver information in a way where people can receive it the best and really grow and expand and enjoy their time while they're taking that class. So it's been collectively close to 10 years, but then more professionally the last 4, and really intensively. Like I would be teaching every other day, and then I worked up into the position of being able to help other trainers kind of grow and expand and rise through the ranks, and just kind of be more in the background as like a trainer of those trainers.
Yeah. So I'd like to get really super practical, for the people that, watch this program, listen to this program, and know that, we're talking to the nation, right? So it's Alaska, Hawaii,
Yes.
and the lower 48. So if you can, what kind of practical information would you give that the trainer of a safety team or the safety director, when it comes to, well, maybe we should just first start with the firearms component. Like what wisdom could you offer that person that they could apply to their team over the next weeks, months, or year to make sure that their team is trained and prepared for the possible use of a firearm?
Absolutely. So, first of all, I would say that in not similar to the military, you don't have trained people who it's their vocation and it's their full-time job to be in that position. So you have to work with what you've got, which means that you want to be encouraging to people who want to come and support. And you want to try to nurture them up and help grow the skills that they have and deliver to them the essentials of what they don't yet possess. Generally, I try to start off with situational awareness and help them to be more aware, both physically and also in the spirit. Because as well as I do, Chris, that whenever we're in a place before the Lord and we're praying and we're asking the Lord for help and direction, he can highlight some things that we would have never noticed without his help. So I believe that the closer we can walk with the Lord and be in that place where we're constantly listening and asking the Lord for direction and things, he's going to be able to provide those opportunities to spot threats before they're actually ever interface. So that's kind of where I start off with, is trying to work with people's desire and encourage a standard. Like we have a standard that's actually taken from, like, similar to the FBI handgun qualification, where we try to promote that standard. And I've worked to try to be available for the team members, because as soon as you set a date, well, that's the opportunity that everybody's aunt is coming to town and they got a family reunion, and I can't make that because I'm working late. If we have 15, 20 people, I've had to do the same presentation 4 or 5 times, just having to be available for people. But the plus side of that is that presentation gets really good at the end. So that's all right. But with that said, being available with them, encouraging them where they're at, and trying to constantly grow and nurture. If you hold a hard standard that everybody has to align themselves to, it can be a little bit daunting. And do you start saying, hey, you can't operate in the space because you can't maintain this, standard that I just put in place? No, you have to give people the time to grow into that and encourage them at every opportunity. So that's just what I guess my limited experience in this space has found, is trying to encourage people, trying to work with them, being available, and offering a standard so that they know what to compare themselves with, where they need to be, eventually, and giving them a little bit of a roadmap to get there. For example, dry fire, regular times at the range, and set the expectation and try to get them as far down that road as you possibly can.
I really like that. And there's been a lot of discussion in this space about getting away from the general idea of annual qualification. Mm-hmm. Instead, it's more of that the safety team members demonstrate proficiency.
Yes.
So how is demonstrating proficiency, described? Basically, it can be different depending on who you're talking to. So I was, I was a cop, and it was it's 42 out of 50 that you had to fire. Mm-hmm. And when I was in the military, there's qualification for the M16 and all that kind of stuff. And it was an annual qualification. This was the standard, and you either met it or you didn't meet it. Mm-hmm. But because of people's different experiences, especially in the church space, it's you're going to have this wide range. If you have this hardcore standard, you might not have people that meet it, but they're still fairly good firers. A conversation that I say, I've had with people is this. Okay, we see at the range you did really well at these distances, but once we got further away, that's when you started missing. So what that tells you is this. Is if there's somebody that you have to engage with a firearm, that tells me and you that you have to close the distance. And now you know what your limitations are.
Yes. And
so, don't take that 1 in a million Hail Mary shot. Yes. If you're not a very good shot, you're going to have to close the distance and then engage. Mm-hmm. And then we've seen all kinds of, one of the things I've asked people said, no, we have to have a hardcore qualification. Is I'll tell them to say, so then your plan is if somebody misses it by 1 round, you're going to tell them that they can't carry anymore at church. Is that the standard?
That's definitely a no-go.
Yeah. And so it's not realistic. Yes. Yeah. I go out to the range and I say, hey, this is what we're shooting for. Mm-hmm. This is what I'd like to see all of you get there. And if you don't get to this, we're going to have a plan to get you to this.
Absolutely.
But when it comes time for the training roster, and I write, okay, range on this date at this time, annual proficiency, then I'm writing down names. I'm saying yes, 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 yes. Unless I got a guy who can't hit the broadside of the barn, then it's going to be like, well, maybe not, and they'll even agree with that conversation of, maybe see what happened here. Maybe we need to get you at the range on a regular basis to get you up to a standard. I mean, what are your thoughts about that?
No, I agree. Absolutely. And then also helping people work in their strength zones. So, for example, sometimes we have older gentlemen that are not physically able to walk the beat and stand there for the entire duration of 2-3 hours, whatever it is. But they're excellent at spotting potential problems via the security cameras. So we have them up there in that kind of bird's nest position, and they just communicate to us via the radio. Still a very critical component of that security team. And we've also been accepting of some people that are just not quite there yet. They don't have the confidence to be able to carry a weapon. Of course, we're a huge proponent for that, in the case that is needed. but also looking at the majority of, conflict that security teams have with not a blind threat. It's not, the solution is not pulling your gun and shooting one. So that situation, someone who's observant and deal with de-escalation and be kind but blunt when they need to, and operate together with that team until the point that they are comfortable. We're very accepting of helping people get there, not having too high of expectations. And like you said, having a plan for them to reach that point so that we're not just leaving them behind and saying, you know what, it's all right if you never grow. No, it's like, yes, you need to grow, but guess what? We're gonna try our best to help you to get there. And that's across the board, not just shooting skills, but also like the equipment that goes along with it. The holsters, the sizing the gun to the person, the ammunition selection, the medical skills that go with that. Communications via radio and all the above. Wherever we can, we're trying to help people that have already raised their hand and have the courage to be able to stand up and sacrifice for people.
Which kind of brings on to the next topic, and that's the unarmed self-defense tactics. Tell us a little bit about what kind of things you train people to do, and I'm sure gauging people's skill level and ability, physical ability, is a big part of it.
Yes, sir. So the principle-based system that I'm a huge advocate for is called target-focused training. And the neat thing about that one is that it's a principle-based system. It's very helpful for people that don't have the time to become a black belt in any martial art. It's literally just using the principles of, against anybody who's wishing them great or lethal harm. So it's not at all based on people's speed or strength or skill. It's just helping them do the bare minimum of exactly what they need to do to be able to stop a threat. And so that's typically the system that I found that has the most success. And like I say, it's a principle-based system. It's not reserved to techniques where you have to memorize 410 different moves. It's literally just showing people the breakdown of how people can be hurt and damaged and how they can stop them from being a lethal harm. So it builds a lot of confidence in people. We just ran a couple of courses recently, and it was great to see even young ladies just shining, just so happy that they got to be in this course. And now they have the confidence to be able to chop down a bigger, faster, stronger aggressor if they ever did meet them on the wrong day. You know what I mean? It's confidence building. It gives them joy to be able to jump into those circumstances, and that if the outcome was particularly dangerous, I at least know a few things that are going to be extremely effective, and I'm going to be effective with just my bare hands. So I think that's a crucial part of anybody's self-defense skill set. Is almost like my friend told me back in the day. He was a mentor. He'd been in martial arts all his life, and he said, if you're not dangerous in the shower, you're undertrained. So just being able to use yourself and not have to always rely on weapons. And like I like to tell people, you are the weapon. Whatever you're holding in your hand, that's just a tool. And as soon as you realize that, then you understand how you can potentially stand in the gap regardless of the situation. You don't have to have a full mag. You don't have to have, a bludgeoning tool or a knife or any mace, all the rest of it. It's simply you and your will with a little bit of knowledge. That's all you need.
I'm thinking about that. You are the weapon. Anything in your hand is just a tool.
Yes, sir.
I really like that. You should copyright that. I love it. You are the weapon. Anything in your hand is just a tool. That's great.
It's basically the methodology of the target focused training system that we advocate. And it was actually the reason why its founder, a guy named Tim Larkin, who was a Navy SEAL, was banned from the UK. They said, hey, we don't allow dangerous weapons. And also you, buddy, like you can't even come into our country.
Wow.
It's
Wow.
kind of funny.
It sounds like there's some overlap there with Krav Maga a little bit.
It's very similar in the way that it's being expressed. The only major difference is that Krav Maga has specific skill sets that are taught in the way of technique and not necessarily in the form of principle. So where they would say, here's a particular solution to this problem set, we're a little bit different in saying, hey, here are the principles to success, and you can play them out any which way that seemed the most obvious and easiest for you to apply in the moment.
Interesting.
Yes, sir.
You know what? As you're kind of talking, it kind of it sounded a little bit similar to what I've told people is, when you're bringing in an outside instructor to teach, your team some basic self-defense skills and those kind of things, is I'll tell them it's better to know 5 things really well than 30 things just barely grasp 30 things.
Absolutely. I agree 100%. Yeah. And it was a similar idea conveyed by Bruce Lee, who I'm a huge fan of, just a little bit biased there, but he said that, I fear not the man who's practiced 30,000 kicks. I fear the man who's practiced one kick 30,000 times. And it's just the simplicity of, knowing what you're capable of doing and not trying to make it more complicated than it needs to be.
So let me throw you a curveball here on this self-defense stuff.
Yes, sir.
So a lot of our teams are people of older age.
Yes.
Very old. Some of them, well, I don't want to say very old because that's all depends on where you're standing if somebody's old or not. But
that's fair.
I'm sure if I'm lucky to be 90, I'm sure I'll think of myself as a young man.
Exactly.
But people with limited physical capabilities. What are what would you say to people that know they have limitations? Can they learn? Can they learn to defend themselves hand to hand?
Oh yeah, absolutely. It only takes 15 pounds of pressure, if applied correctly, to break someone's bone. It's a little known fact that if you know how to apply yourself, it doesn't take a whole lot. And I don't care how tough you are. If you get your eyes gouged by a grandma who's 90 years old, your eyes are still going to close. They're going to water, and that's going to give you a moment in time for that grandma to do the next thing, whether it's whack you with her cane in the side of the neck or, purse to the groin. I'm just saying that there's a lot of options on the table whenever people open up their eyes to exactly how easy it is to hurt the human body. Something that we practice very, very slowly, and we don't even do the full movement, is actually the ear cup or ear slap, where you're forming your hand to almost like if you were holding water, and then you press it quickly and just slap the side of the ear. Well, that column of pressure that is condensed by your hand cupped and going to the ear is more than enough to disrupt and actually rupture that eardrum. And that alone is going to, again, give that person the opportunity to do the next thing that they want to you, whether it's pull the rug out from under you, throw a knee and a leg, or whatever they need to do, elbow to the side of the neck, solar plexus. There's so many options on the table. And really, if you're over 100 pounds and you have the intent to be able to carry it out, which comes down to the will to survive. It's how bad do you want it? There's been a lot of case studies where that's exactly all that's required. A little bit of knowledge applied correctly, a massive amount of intent. And if you weigh over 100 pounds, you've got the body weight to be able to make it connect.
So I'm hearing that people that might think of themselves as physically limited, and maybe they are in fact physically limited, there's a lot more that they can learn to do than they might even imagine.
100%, absolutely. And without relying on, existential tools, otherwise known as weapons, they don't need to have those things in their hands. We've seen time and time again different test cases where people have been attacked and they feared for their lives, and there was absolutely a case for a lethal threat, and they fought to stop the threat in the most simple, brutal, effective way, and the fight's over, almost before it begins. And the great thing is actually the psychological advantage of people that would often be seen as a target by a predator or those weaker individuals in society is that they're not going to be expecting a fight. If so I'll use my grandma for a quick example, because my grandma is such a kick in the pants. Over 91 years old, she's still splitting firewood. She's still building fires and just doing outside chores, and she's really a hoot. And I tell you what, if she had a mind to just wreck somebody's world with a little bit of knowledge, she'd be able to do it. It's just, it doesn't take a whole lot, as long as you're applying yourself effectively. And that's really like the crux of the system, is getting that little bit of knowledge to make yourself as effective as if you had a tool or a weapon in your hand.
The other thing I mentioned to people is you may not have a choice.
Mm-hmm.
You could be that person with, limited physical capabilities, but if you're attacked, you don't get to pick that. And
Yes.
So it's always better to have something than nothing.
Exactly. And it starts in the mentality. And so that's really why with American Reconstruction Concepts, our mission statement is to help people. It's to help responsible people and first responders with life-saving mentality, skills, and tactics. So the mentality is fundamental. It's baseline. And a lot of times that's where we see most good citizens in the U.S. have the most difficult time, is having the mentality of being committed to stop a threat. There's been cases of people, pulling out their guns, having to drop on the bad guy, and they can't pull the trigger because they don't have it. They haven't crossed that bridge in their own mind. And that's very detrimental to them. It never ends up well. Very sad cases, but that mentality is crucial. The tactics side of the house is very important too, because even if you're the most accomplished in your space, be that with a handgun, with a knife, with your bare hands, whatever that is, and you're applying the wrong tactic, you may end up losing. And that's why we say that tactics trump skills. I don't know if you're a follower of John Lovell, Warrior Poet Society at all, but I'll give him a shout out because that's where I learned that particular saying from. Tactics trump skills. So if you're applying yourself with the right solution to the battlefield problem or the problem set at hand, that's more important than being the fastest shot, the highest speed, most precise shooter on the gun range. It's almost like in Proverbs where it says that a wise man sees the trouble ahead and hides himself. The best thing is to see something in a problem taking place where you avoid it. But as security members, you can't always do that. But what you can do is you can see it far enough in advance to give yourself the extra warning or the different pre-event cues so that you're ahead of that power curve. And even if you're slower on the draw than whoever else you're going up against, if you're applying the right tactic, you can still get out on the other side of the game as the winner. You know what I'm saying?
Sure. Yeah, there's a general that said, and I'm not going to remember who the general was, but kind of in the same vein a little bit, is a good plan executed now is better than a perfect plan later. And really what it comes down to, it's about the sooner you can react to what's going on in even a good way as opposed to a perfect way is always going to be better than than this. You might be the best shot in the world, but if you're the bad guy could be the best shot in the world, but you got good tactics and you're executing them and you're taking action, you can eliminate their better skill set.
Yes. And that's really what our goal is to help people cut down their reaction time, improve their mentality, and then give them the best winning cutting edge tactics in that sector, and then add to their skills. So that's really the crux of it. And that's why we offer the self-defense classes and also the handgun classes. So that's really our focus, especially for security members.
Yeah, so tell us a little bit. So the people in the Pacific Northwest that want to train with you and learn by you, how would they get a hold of you? How do they schedule this kind of stuff? Or, do you have regular classes, or how do you do all this stuff?
Absolutely. Yeah, we have been running regular classes almost every weekend, actually. And we're based out of Spokane, but it's very centrally located. And the way we designed the business is to be able to offer those trainings to people anywhere within the Pacific Northwest, basically within driving range of several hours. We can, if somebody wants a class and they're not within the Spokane region, it's just too far for them to drive. But they can check out our schedule. They'll see what's happening on our website. But if they're further out and they're just like, man, I can't get myself and all my buddies, like our security team isn't going to drive from Missoula, Montana to Spokane, Washington for a day course, well, then that's when myself and our other instructor cadre will run down there and we can present any of the classes that we offer. So pretty much it's a pretty simple rule. If yourself and four other people or a minimum of five want any of the classes that we offer, then they can reach out to us. And if you have the facility that's going to be ample for that, and we have all of these qualifiers and, what we need to conduct a class correctly is on the website under courses, then they can just request that. So if you have five people schedule it, then we're more than willing to work with them and then set up our schedule accordingly.
Okay. So let me throw the ridiculous curveball against, to you. Okay,
Yes.
so somebody in Hawaii, Alaska, or Florida gives you a call. I, I assume are you going out to them, or are you directing them towards a local provider?
So I'm glad you mentioned that because in all likelihood we would not be flying out there. So that's really where I would just encourage them for like the guidelines of a quality in-person instructor, someone who's passionate, who cares, who's able to present the information well, and that the information is verified and it's cutting edge. You're not having somebody who's teaching you 1980s tactics in the 2020s. So pretty much besides that, we are currently working on launching several online courses, and that's helping them with the handgun portion, with the empty hand combatives. Literally with every class that we offer, we're working on a digital space presentation so that people can walk through those skills, work with their other training partners or family members, and utilize that to be able to train themselves up. They're not launched yet, but they will be coming out soon.
Sure. Good to know. Good to know. So
Yes, sir.
I'm going to give you, the second to the last word. Is there anything else that you would like to say? I mean, right now you're talking to probably about 10,000 sheepdogs from every state in the union.
Yes, sir.
Do you have any final thoughts or for them?
I would just recommend to each and every one of them that they stay vigilant, that they stay in prayer, that they keep their skills up, and that they do their best to be like Gideon's 300, who maintain good situational awareness. And even though there were 10,000 who stood up and said, I'm ready to go, and were actually fearless, there was only 300 that God specifically utilized to win about one of the greatest victories in battlefield history, and to be able to maintain that posture both in the spirit and physical, and also like just a good reminder for everyone that as men we want to be those protectors, we want to be those guys in the space getting the work done, that we want to make sure that we're checking our egos and walking humbly with the Lord, and how important that is, because God resists the proud and he helps the humble. And Micah reminds us in 6:8 that what is required of us except to do justly, to love mercy, and to walk humbly with our God. And really, if we're carrying that each and every day, we're leaving the results up to the Lord, and we're doing it the best that we can. Walking humbly with him is going to be key, and he's going to win the victory. We just have to remember that we're the willing instrument, but he's the one that gets the results. So I just want to applaud everybody in that space. I understand it's a sacrifice. Keep up the good work and keep trusting the Lord, because faith does move mountains. And he is always our stronghold, our fortress, and the one in whom we can place all our trust.
All right. Excellent. Mike, thank you so much time for talking with me today and talking to the sheepdogs out there about firearms proficiency and about the unarmed self-defense and just really the importance of this calling. So thank you for being
Yes, sir.
on the show today. I really appreciate it.
Well, thank you for the opportunity. I appreciate what you're doing. Great job, Chris. Thank you.
Yeah. Thank you. Well, it was great conversation. I'm so glad that you were here today and you were able to sit in on that conversation. I do ask that if you like this video, please like, share, comment. Go over to Mike's website. We'll have it down in the description. Check him out and see if you want to have further conversations with him. Maybe get some training from him if you're in the Pacific Northwest. That's kind of his target area. Other than that, thank you so much for being here today. And hey, let's be careful out there. This program is made for informational purposes only and should not be taken as legal advice.